Well, I hope we can do so. The opinion polls today are encouraging, but you've got a year to go and there's an awful lot of people who haven't made their minds up.
One of the main fundamental points for the Nationalists is decisions for Scotland are best made in Edinburgh rather than London. I mean, it's hard to disagree with that, isn't it?
Well, decisions on many aspects of life in Scotland, education, health, transport, policing and so on, are made in the Scottish Parliament.
What about the economy? That's not, is it?
If you look at things like training, if you look at things like, assistance to companies, that is in Scotland. But the point about the economy is that instead of just having a market of 6 million people to sell into, there's a market of 60 million. And indeed, the logic is, if you think that being part of the European Union is beneficial to Scottish business, which the Nationalists do, why is it then not logical also to be part of the United Kingdom?
So do you support more devolution for Scotland?
From next year, the Scottish government, the Scottish Parliament will have control over land taxation, that's stamp duty for the most part. The year after, it will have the power and responsibility to fix its own income tax rate. So there is already more devolution coming down the line.
What's your doomsday scenario then if Scotland were to become an independent country?
Scotland could, like any other country, survive, but you'd be heavily dependent on North Sea oil revenues for taxation, nearly 20% of the total. And on top of that, experience shows that smaller countries have to run, a much tighter, tax and spend policy, which would have implications on how much we spent on public services.
Right. So, for example, if Scotland had been an independent country when the Bank of Scotland nearly went bust in 2008, of course, you were the Chancellor then, what would have happened to the country?
Well, much the same as happened in Ireland or Iceland. It just couldn't have done it. But because I had the strength of the UK, I could bail out not just RBS, but the other banks as well. The Americans knew our credit was good and they kept the bank going during the few hours when it could easily have collapsed. Look what happened in Ireland. They underwrote their banks and it brought the entire country down and it had to be bailed out by the IMF and the European Union.
Of course, the economy is incredibly important and you know more than anyone that. But this is a matter of the heart as well, isn't it? And as a proud Scotsman yourself, do you not understand why some of your fellow Scots want to be independent? It's important for them and their kinship.
I understand that if you're a nationalist and you believe as a matter of principle Scotland ought to be a part, I understand the argument, I just don't agree with it. I am fiercely proud of being Scottish, I'm fiercely proud of being British, and I don't see why I've got to be forced to choose between the two. But I can see the advantages of my country, of being part of the UK, because you've got bigger markets for our businesses, you've got the more opportunities, you've got the security, which is important to us as well. It's in our best interest.
Alistair, darling, thank you very much for your thoughts tonight.